What's good, people? My name is Mr. Grimez, the Poet Warrior, and this is Sundal Roy. How you doing? You good?
Yeah, I'm very good.
Excellent, excellent. So I came across your YouTube channel randomly when the Paris attacks happened,
Yeah.
and man, you've got such an interesting channel, you know. So I thought I would connect with you and find out where you're at. So tell us about what you believe in and how you got into modelling.
Okay, well, how I got into modelling, it was like 12 years ago now, I think. I was at uni, I was studying architecture, and I kind of always wanted to model, like when I was younger. I actually wanted to be an actress first, but I was just interested in modelling just because of, you know, when you're a young girl growing up in like a society like the one that we do, we tend to like idolise models and actresses. So, you know, those are the role models that were kind of like presented to me. So, you know, I lost a little bit of weight when I was at uni. I think I was 19. So then I just sent some pictures to a local agency, and I was just doing it while I was studying architecture. It was just a great way to make a little bit of extra cash. But I'd always wanted to work in fashion. I actually wanted to be a fashion designer. So when I graduated from my architecture degree, instead of applying for sort of part one industry placements, I was getting like a little bit of extra work over that summer, and I met this one girl who was a full-time model, and just the idea of just being self-employed and kind of working for yourself and getting to decide when you could work just really appealed to me. So I just signed with loads of agencies and just started freelancing. Then I moved to London after about 8 months of doing that. I was working quite well, I was quite busy, and then I signed with an agency in London, so it just kind of went from there. For me, it was, I mean, initially, you know, when I was younger, it was more just kind of this whole like glamorous sort of like wanting to be on the cover of magazines kind of thing. But when I first went into it, it was just because I was just really disillusioned by how enslaved architects were and just how hard we had to work. And I just didn't really want to do that, didn't really want to be part of it. So I thought modelling would be a good stopgap until I went on to fashion design, but it's actually been about 12 years now and I'm still modelling.
Wow, so obviously you've got that passion and you're an artist as well, aren't you? In some cases when it comes to fashion.
Yeah, like I always did, when I first started modelling, I kind of realised that if I just relied on my agency to get me work, then I was never really going to be that successful. So I just started doing my own sort of art direction and my own productions and kind of styling shoots and things like that, and that's when I then got into styling. So I do a little bit of styling and art direction as well now. So that's kind of, you know, that would be a good thing to transition into if modelling dries up. But right now it's, you know, it's really busy.
Wow. Yeah. So what are the difficult times you've had in modelling and the highlights of modelling?
I don't know, like you might have to be more specific.
Okay, all right then. In terms of what are your highlights or pivotal moments that you have kind of seen changes or?
Probably like the best job that I ever did was it was for Harper's Bazaar Bride India, and we did this one editorial called A Tale of Four Cities, and it was a jewellery story. And because the jewellery that they had sourced for the editorial was so expensive, none of the designers were willing to send their stuff to Bombay or to Delhi or wherever. Just they were not willing to send it to you know, another city. They told the team that they had to shoot it locally, so they ended up, you know, changing the whole brief of the story around this kind of concept of travelling to 4 different cities, and it's called A Tale of Four Cities. So we shot over 8 days. We got to travel to 4 cities in India. I think we did Hyderabad, Chennai, Jaipur, and what was the 4th one? Calcutta. And I learned, oh my god, it was amazing. Like I got to see so much of India. I got to see how different like each state was. How each state has like a different religion, a different language, different kind of cuisine, different customs, different jewelry styles. Like even clothes are different. Like it really was quite a special trip. I'd say another highlight of my career was shooting for Vogue Thailand, because I didn't even realise that was going to end up on the cover, and then I got on the cover, so that kind of really, I wouldn't say opened doors for me, but it definitely I got to a point where I kind of proved myself, because up until that point, you kind of always have this kind of sense of like imposter syndrome. And I think everybody gets it, but once I got that, then I was no longer an imposter. I was just like, hey, I've proven it now. Like,
Awesome. So, in terms of your lifestyle, you're a vegan.
yeah.
And when did you first become a vegan, or I should say, when did you realize your purpose of being vegan, I guess?
I first became a vegan when I was about 16. Like, I turned vegetarian at 13, and because I mean, I'd first tried to become vegetarian at 12, but I wasn't very good at it. Like, I wasn't really vegetarian, I was a pescatarian. I would sometimes eat chicken, and so then at 13, I decided to do it again, because I just really was just very uncomfortable with eating animals. I was uncomfortable with what it looked like, I was uncomfortable with where it came from. But I was determined not to fail like I had the previous year, so I did a lot of research. I watched a lot of very disturbing videos, I read a lot of articles, a lot of books. I came across Peter's work. Yeah, so when I was about 15 or 16, my parents allowed me to start going to sort of activist demos and doing stuff with Peter. And because all the activists at Peter were all vegan, I just became a vegan as well. It was just, unfortunately, nobody actually took the time to explain to me why veganism was important and like what happens in the dairy and egg industries. It was just kind of a given that everyone was vegan. So, 16, and I just became vegan. Yeah, it's just a lot of propaganda that tells people that they need a certain amount of protein. Actually, if you look at human breast milk contains 5% protein, and an adult's protein requirements are nowhere near a grown baby. So, the science on it is clear if you actually look into it. But there is too much propaganda that says that, if you're growing muscle, you're going to need 20% protein, which is just not true. And actually, you can get cancer if you have too much protein.
Why do you think people don't want to know the truth, basically?
Because they're too conditioned and they're too comfortable with, their comforts, and there's a lot of mind control that goes on in society in general, telling people that they need certain things that they don't actually need, because we've got an infinite growth model, and that's how the world's economy is run. And people believe what they're told in the newspapers and magazines and on the TV, and they don't realise that these media outlets are part of a system that feeds into this corporate agenda. But they trust these as being, the harbingers of truth. If something comes out through, they don't understand how much everybody has to keep a roof over their head. So even these academic journals, scientists who put out scientific studies, scientists have to keep a roof over their heads as well. So if they're doing a scientific study that is being funded by the dairy industry, they're going to have to get certain results to please the person who's keeping a roof over their heads. A lot of people don't realise the politics that goes into that, or they just don't want to look at it because they're too addicted.
And yes, as you mentioned, it is about the comfort zone, which I've come across as well, especially in doing music. Everyone seems like they want to be stuck in the box, and there's nothing outside of the box or the circle. And if you try a different way, you're in the wrong for doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what totally pisses me off as well.
Well, too many people want to go the tried and tested route, but they don't realise that the tried and tested route was trailblazed by somebody. And if you want to actually be a pioneer, then you have to go the road less travelled. That's how human evolution works. We're never going to evolve as a species if we don't have people who are trailblazing a different way. And that's people in the truth community, people in the vegan community are trying to do, but they're facing a lot of backlash from the mainstream, because they're showing people that it is possible to live a different way. It might be a little bit less convenient, but it's certainly more sustainable and it's more ethical, and that makes people feel very uncomfortable because they know that the way that they're living is not sustainable and it's not ethical.
And the thing is, TV has become like a babysitter now, and people look up to it so much that everything it says is the truth.
It's really difficult because, in finding the truth, so much of what is truth relies on faith. So people think that, religion is all just it's nonsense. Look at any kind of scientific research, that also relies on a lot of faith. Most people will not go and do the scientific research themselves, nor will they even study the paper. All they will do is they will trust that this scientist knows what they're talking about it, and they'll go, this person says that the article is bad science, so therefore that must be true. So you know, to try and get at the truth involves so much doing your own research. Most people don't have time to do that because most people are too busy working 9 to 5 to put not even 9 to 5, 9 to 8 to put a roof over their heads, and you know, one for their kids as well. That's why I like modelling, because you know, even though as a profession it's quite vacuous and quite sort of superficial, and it promotes self-consumption, it's allowed me a lot of free time, because the amount that I earn just for one day I can afford to live on for a week. So that gives me 4 days, you know, maybe going to castings and go-sees and stuff like that, but I'm waiting around a lot. So while I'm waiting around, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm, you know, reading books and things like that, and I'm feeding my mind with stuff that most people don't have time to do.
Another thing as well, because society is so watered down as well, it's like everything's getting trimmed down.
Yeah.
People don't want to read, and
Yeah.
they don't want to really express themselves, as I'm doing myself right now.
Yeah.
My college game. So it's very kind of difficult to kind of get the message out there. I mean, it's easy to get the message out there, but for a lot of people to listen and to connect with that message.
Yeah, people won't, I mean, they want everything summarized for them. So sometimes they won't even bother to read an article. They'll just look at the title of the article. So you'll see people sharing things on Facebook like, oh, juicing is bad for you and bad for the environment. They won't even like look at the article, they'll just look at the title. And usually the title is very clickbaity. So it's actually just designed to, you know, get people, you know, to have a real impact. But they won't really like look at what it actually says, or some, you know, some article that says that like, oh, almond milk is worse for you than a cow's milk because of some stupid thing that they found out about, God knows what, I don't know, like maybe not almond milk is not a good example, maybe soy milk, because of how it can mimic estrogens in the body, but it's still not as bad as, you know, while that is true, it's still not as bad as cow's milk, because cow's milk actually has like, you know, bovine growth hormone in it that actually will cause cancer. So certain things that they'll just put on the title, and then people will be like, oh, this is from, you know, so and so mainstream newspaper, so it must be true, but they've not actually taken the time to read it. And if the article is referencing certain scientific studies, they won't take the time to go and look at those scientific studies. Most people don't do that. Most people don't have time. Like I don't even blame them for it.
But the thing is, if you try and tell those people, like, look, here's some research, go and check it out for yourself, they don't want to know, because they just believe that everything is a certain way.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the reason why people won't look at it is because they do not want to accept that there is something wrong with society. Most people who have gone through this process of awakening and you know, trying to get closer to the truth, have done it because they have experienced some kind of suffering. And they know that there's something very wrong with the world.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them also, in the back of their minds, they know how deep it goes. Maybe they don't. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what they think, to be honest. I think maybe some of them are too scared to kind of look at it, because it takes you down this rabbit hole, doesn't it? And it goes really fucking deep. And for me, I'm at the point now where I don't even know what's real and what's false anymore, because there's been so many curveballs that have been thrown in the truth community now that people actually believe. And I'm not saying that they're idiots for believing them either, but things like the flat earth theory and stuff like that. A lot of this stuff is, of course they're trying to infiltrate it, and they're trying to make people who are kind of trying to get at the truth look like a bunch of fucking idiots.
But it's also about division. The more ideas you put into the truth movement, the more people are distracted as well. And it's not to say that there isn't truth. It's not to say there isn't truth in what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just that there's just a lot of division, because people can't make up their minds, they don't know which direction to go.
Yeah.
So it's very hard for people to decide and say, let's decide on something and move things forward.
Yeah.
It's all about moving things back, because people are arguing about, you know, different things. Yeah.
Well, also like 10 years ago, when I first got involved with you know, We Are Change and truth activism, it was a lot simpler. It was all about 9/11 and you know, a lot of stuff about big pharma as well. So that stuff is a lot easier to understand, and that's the kind of stuff that has become just mainstream knowledge now. It's not even, you couldn't even call it crazy conspiracy theories, because it's just widely accepted to be fact now.
Yeah.
So, you know, people are starting to see it. So now when you're getting into like things like flat earth and reptilians, it becomes a little bit more hazy, like you don't really know what to believe. But it's interesting. But ultimately, I think people need to like decolonize their minds in a productive way. And I think veganism is quite key to that, because it's so obvious how much eating animals is affecting our health, it's affecting the planet, it's obviously completely morally reprehensible. You know, and I really think that like once you kind of connect with that, and once you start making changes in that way, you see how your actions are affecting so many other parts of just other parts of the world. Like, I mean, you don't even really have to get too far into kind of conspiracies to understand that like most people on this planet have been enslaved by this system. You know, just the people who make our clothes, the people who fight our wars for us, in order so that we can steal natural resources from like other countries. I mean, these are things that are like, they're just commonly accepted as fact now. Things that we were trying to get people to see 10 years ago and we were called crazy for, and people are just like, oh yeah, of course, I would not dispute that. It's just like, well, a lot of people were disputing this a long time ago. Not even that long ago, like 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I just find that in terms of community as well, it's kind of really hard to have a community nowadays. I'm not saying that communities don't exist as well, but I find that it's kind of hard to kind of get a community to decide on certain things, you know what I mean, or try to fight for a cause. It's only until something happens, like someone gets shot, that's when people come out and, you know, protest, which is cool. Yeah. But then people decide to go in a corner when it's over. It's about working towards that change constantly, rather than just, you know, put the protest on for that time and then go back to your life the next day. It's about constantly working on a change. That's what it's about, in my personal opinion. You know, I'm not against protest, of course, but it's also about putting in that work for everything.
Yeah, I mean, protests are, I mean, ultimately, I'm not really sure what they're for. What are they about? Showing the government that you don't like what they're doing? They know that we don't like what they're doing. Like, what's the point in that? Like, I think we actually have to take the time to educate ourselves and educate each other. I think that's going to be the main thing. Protesting is all very well. I mean, it's great for like, I think protesting can be good for like connecting with other people, because, you know, when you're out on the street, you're meeting people, like-minded people, and you're making connections. So in that way, it is good. And also, there's something quite empowering about like having solidarity en masse. So that can kind of get you fired up. But ultimately, I think the most important thing is education. So putting out information is going to be really, really important. So things like, you know, YouTube, and even just like holding like conferences and things like that. I think that's going to be something that's going to be really, really important now.
Yeah, that's right. It's also, as you mentioned, education and self-education, because people think it's all about just going into a college or a school and learn what the teacher is saying, but it's also outside of that as well. Because,
totally.
You know, people always depend on the mainstream sources for everything, which, you know, I get tired of trying to explain to people that there's other ways of doing things, but they don't want to hear it. So but my message to people as well is just to, you know, always look out the box, as I mentioned before, and it seems like we're on that same wavelength as well, you know, which is good, you know.
Yeah, because the education system, especially in this country, it just homogenizes people. It's not turning out unique individuals with unique sets of skills. It's kind of just, everybody must fit into this box. If you don't fit into this box, then you're a retard. If you fit really well in this box, then you are, you know, excellent, and you will go to Eton.
Okay, people, that's the end of the interview here with Sundal Roy. Thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me along.
Excellent. I hope this interview comes out well. And as I always say, F the beef, increase the peace.